Welcome back, everyone. We are back in open session. In closed session, we did receive information from legal, also some update on staffing. And I would ask at this time that we make a motion to resume back into public meeting, including Committee of Adjustment. Councillor Irwin, Councillor Daigle, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And Ashley is with us, and our first item of business is the notice of public meeting to consider application MV4 2026 located at 25963 King Street. And is the applicant here? Would you like to come up? How are you, Dave? Good evening. Good. No, here at the table. And then if you want to make comments, just ask you to turn the microphone on when you speak, all right? I know. Are you ready, Ashley? Technology is awesome, isn't it?
So something's going on. Good. And that keeps happening.
Very sad.
Okay, Ashley, if you're ready, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Rob. So this minor variance is for 25963 King Street, which is located in the Hamlet settlement area of Carlisle. The lands are located on the south side of King Street at the northwest intersection of King Street, West Street, and Bruce Street. The lands are approximately 0.74 acres in size, and they currently contain one single detached dwelling and one permanent accessory structure, as well as a temporary tent structure. The lands are predominantly surrounded by rural residential uses, and they have approximately 60 meters or 197 feet of frontage on both King Street and West Street, meaning that they're classified as a through lot. So in this particular instance, the zoning bylaw does require the municipality to choose which is the front lot line. So logically speaking, the municipality designates King Street as the front lot line. The purpose and effect of this application is to facilitate the construction of one accessory structure for personal storage purposes in what the bylaw defines as the front yard. So technically speaking, your bylaw requires that any accessory structures be located behind the front wall of the house. And in this particular instance, this accessory structure is proposed to replace the existing temporary tent structure, and this one would be approximately 400 square feet in size and around 10 feet in height, whereas what's there now is approximately 300 square feet in size and similar height. And that height is as measured from grade to peak. The application was circulated in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act, and comments received are outlined in my report. Canada Post, Integris, the Lake Huron and Elgin area water supply system, the county engineer, the building department, and the drainage superintendent noted no comments or concerns. Emergency services did provide standard comment just to ensure that the 911 signage is updated and posted on the property, and that infrastructure and operations also did note a standard comment, just that services, if any are proposed to connect to the structure, they have to use the existing service that's already connected to the house, meaning no new connections in the road allowance. That being said, no comments were submitted by members of the public prior to my report submission. However, we are here to receive feedback this evening as well if there is any. Policy context is provided in detail in my report, as is my analysis, but I would summarize it at a high level by saying that the proposed accessory structure is relatively small in scale, again noting 400 square feet in size, 10 feet in height. The structure would be set back approximately 59 feet from the front lot line. It's not going to be located directly in front of the existing dwelling, and it would be screened from the road with existing mature trees. So I did go out and take site photos just to show you here the view from King Street. So you can see what's there now is behind those trees. It's really hard to see from the road allowance if you're looking straight on at the property. Additionally, the location is also influenced by site constraints, such as where the driveway is located, the existing accessory structure in the rear, and the doors where they are on that structure, as well as the location of the well and septic system and mature trees. That said, for the reasons outlined in my report, staff are of the opinion that the variance does satisfy the 4 tests as set out in the Planning Act, and we are recommending the relief be granted by the committee this evening, with 3 standard conditions, being that the structure is located in the same general location as submitted on the application, that 911 addressing and signage is confirmed, and that the structure may only be used for personal storage purposes. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thanks.
Thank you, Ashley. Applicant, anything you'd like to add to that, to the comments? No, nothing to add. I have to ask at this time, is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on this application? I'll ask again if there's anyone from the public on this application. If not, I'll turn this over to the committee. Is there questions in the committee? No questions? You have a question? Go ahead, Councillor.
My question is for the applicant, and that is, and looking at the photo, that circular thing beside the trees there, is that your well? And it's not going to be affected or impacted by what you're going to construct? Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Keogh. You're making the motion, recommendation, moved by Councillor Keogh, second by Councillor Daigle. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Thanks, Dave. Our next application is for a public meeting to consider application MV 5/2026, located at 34077 Neil Road. And do we have the applicant here for that? Would you like to come up and take the hot seat? I mean, the guest seat. No, it's the guest seat. Well, welcome. Ashley, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. So this minor variance is for 34077 Neil Road, which is located north of Prince William Street on the west side of Neil Road. The lands are approximately 50 acres in size and currently contain one single detached residential dwelling and 3 accessory structures. The lands are predominantly surrounded by agricultural uses, and they are designated as an agricultural area in the official plan, as well as zoned as general agricultural in your zoning bylaw. So the purpose and effect of this application is to facilitate the construction of one detached additional residential unit, otherwise known as an ARU, and it was proposed to be approximately 1,300 square feet in size. Minimum distance separation relief is required, so MDS 1, as the minimum setback from the nearest neighboring livestock facility at 34080 Neil Road is 233 meters or 764 feet. And that's just where that black line is shown on that image. So that's what the required setback would be. Whereas 117 meters or 384 feet is proposed, and that's where the red line is. I would just note that the existing single detached dwelling on the property is located 77 meters from the dwellings or from the livestock facility, so it is located much closer. And the reason for the location is largely to do with the implementation of the official plan policies requiring that an ARU be located within 30 meters of the principal dwelling. That's just to ensure your residential clustering. You're not taking farmland out of production, putting it, in odd locations essentially, and that you're using like the same driveway. Services are not taking up additional farmland, that kind of thing. So staff will note that this MDS relief requested does relate to a barn that was tragically lost to a fire on Monday this week, and we would like to express sincere condolences to the farmer and all of those affected, and we also want to express sincere gratitude to the multiple fire departments who were on scene. We are glad to hear that everyone's safe, but that being said, as this loss is still very recent, the application is proceeding just under the consideration that we don't yet know the future plans for the barn at this point in time. Policy context is provided for in my report, and the application was circulated in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act, and comments received as noted are in my report. Bell Canada, Canada Post, Integris, the Lake Huron and Elgin area water supply system, the county engineer, the building department, and the drainage superintendent noted no comments or concerns. Emergency services, again, did just provide a standard comment to ensure that 911 signage is posted on the property, and the ARU will have its own 911 address for emergency service responders. And then the Infrastructure and Operations Department did note no concerns so long as the existing driveway is utilized and the municipal water service connection as applicable is utilized. Again, no new connections in the right-of-way, just using what's already on the site there. Comment was submitted by the neighboring farmer that the MDS relief is required from, that he has no concern with the proposed relief. No additional comments were submitted by members of the public prior to my report submission. However, again, we are certainly happy to receive feedback this evening. So as noted in my report, the interpretation of what is minor is not necessarily based on a quantitative extent. It's based on what the actual impact of the variance is. I did touch on some key points in my notes here, just noting that staff have reviewed the location and context of the land. And it's our opinion that the MDS relief is minor in this particular situation. Notably, the existing dwelling, the principal dwelling, is located approximately 77 meters from the barn as it exists currently, which is significantly below the required MDS 1 setback. But that ultimately does mean that that existing dwelling is what is the limiting factor for any future expansions of that facility. As noted, this ARU wouldn't make that any worse, simply put. Staff also acknowledged that OMAFRA does provide for factors to consider when varying MDS relief, just strictly because their numbers are based on a quantitative analysis, and it doesn't take into account things such as prevailing wind, topography, and vegetation, which these do present as mitigating factors in this particular instance. So that said, for the reasons outlined in my report, we are of the opinion that the variance satisfies the 4 tests of the Planning Act for minor variance, and we are recommending the relief be granted. Again, with 2 standard conditions, just being that the structure is located in that same general location as the application requests, and that the 911 addressing and signage is confirmed. I would also just note a typo in my recommendation that I did note the reliefs for 77 meters, but it is for 117 meters. The 77 meters is what exists for the existing dwelling. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. I do want to echo on behalf of council as well. Sorry for your loss of the barn. Yeah, well, yes, but I mean, I'm sorry for the loss of the barn and I'm glad no one was hurt. We can always build another barn, right? But I just wanted to mention that. So anything you'd like to add, sir, to the?
Pictures. It's very hard to see the farm from the proposed location because there's so much vegetation, trees and whatnot. Yeah, that's from the road that are gonna be on. But yeah, it's hard to see and there's no new restrictions caused by the ADU because the house is so close to the barn, essentially. It's 77 meters and the ADU that we're proposing is way back.
Okay.
Quite a bit further, but still within the 30-meter setback from the primary residence.
Okay, thank you. I do have to ask if there's anyone in the public who would like to speak on this application. I would ask once more if there's anyone in the public to speak on this. Seeing no one, committee, council, questions? You're making the motion, moved by Councillor Daigle, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hodgins. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Thank you. Our next application is the notice of public meeting to consider application ZBA 04-2026 at 26951 Coldstream Road. And good night. Good night. Yes, sir. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We brag on our firefighters as well. We think they do a great job. Thank you. Sorry, do we have the applicant online, I believe, is that right? Would you like to come up, sir? How are you doing? Oh, okay. So we have someone online as well. Oh, okay. I see them now. Thank you. All right. Looks like we're set. So go ahead, Ashley.
Thank you, Mayor Rupp. So as noted, the subject lands have a municipal address of 26951 Coldstream Road, and they're located at the southwest intersection of Coldstream Road and Bornish Drive. Surrounding uses are predominantly agricultural in nature. The lands are designated in the official plan as an agricultural area, and they are currently zoned as general agricultural. On October 1st, 2025, the committee granted approval with conditions to the applicant to sever a surplus farm dwelling from the remainder of the remnant farmland. And one of those conditions is to ensure that the zoning on the property is correctly implemented. As such, the subject zoning application would rezone the severed parcel to a site-specific agricultural small holding zone to recognize the rural residential use of the land, and site-specific relief would also be included to recognize a reduced setback for shed number 1 on the image of 1.65 meters or roughly 5 feet, and for shed number 2 to have a setback of 2.18 meters or roughly 7.15 feet, whereas the zoning bylaw requires a minimum setback of 3 meters or roughly 10 feet. The retained parcel would also be rezoned to a site-specific general agricultural zone to prohibit the establishment of any new residential dwelling on the property. As noted previously, when the consent came forward, that is a requirement under the provincial planning statement to do. This is also site-specific release to recognize the existing storage barn setback. So a minimum interior side yard setback of 15 meters or roughly 49 feet is required, whereas 2.57 meters or 8.43 feet would be what it would exist. The proposed relief would be specifically for the structures as they exist today. If they ever are demolished or removed, they could not be reconstructed in the same manner. So simply put, any new structures would have to comply with the zoning bylaw. The application was circulated in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act. Canada Post, Integris, Lake Huron, and Elgin Area Water Supply, and the county engineer noted no comments or concerns. Emergency Services, the Building Department, the Drainage Superintendent, and the Infrastructure and Operations Department noted that their comments are being addressed through the consent process, so no additional comments for the zoning portion. And no formal comments were submitted by members of the public prior to my report submission. However, one neighboring landowner did reach out that they may be in attendance this evening. So that said, again, we're here to hear any additional feedback before a decision is made. Policy context is provided in my report, and as I've noted in my report, staff with the consent ultimately recommended that the severed parcel be reduced in size, largely so that shed number 2 would remain with the retained farmland. Ultimately, the committee opted to go with the original lot area request proposed by the applicant. So as such, to maintain consistency with staff's position on the consent, that is why there is a recommendation for denial this evening. That said, the committee did approve the severance application in the lot fabric through that process. So in order to finalize the severance, the applicant does require this rezoning be granted this evening. So council has the option to either follow staff's recommendation for denial, they may request it be deferred for revisions, or they may approve it and pass the bylaw to that effect to implement the decision they made as a committee on the consent. Thank you.
Thanks, Ashley. Who's going to speak for you here? Who wants to make comment to this? Go ahead.
Thank you, and through the chair, good evening. Can you hear me okay?
We just want to get it turned up a little more.
Okay, no problem.
We can hardly hear you, and I'm sure if Councillor Nerda and I have the same thing. One ear works and one doesn't, so
Can you hear me now?
that's better.
Okay, thank you so much. So I wanted to say that I'm the planning consultant for the applicants tonight, and you may recognize me because I was here with the applicants on October 1st of last year when we presented the consent application to the committee. As Ms. Sawyer had indicated, despite the recommendation of staff to reduce the dimensions of the lot as you see it on the screen, identified in red, that's ultimately what was approved by the committee. And the rezoning follows those lines. So the applicants have completed almost all of the conditions, including the reference plan that is needed to finalize the consent. The rezoning is one of the last few conditions that are remaining to finalize the consent. So we obviously don't agree with the recommendation of staff, but we understand that the purpose was just to be consistent with their initial recommendation on the lot dimensions. I do want to add that we have no issue with the way the bylaw is proposed if council decides to approve the zoning bylaw amendment tonight. We recognize that the setback relief would be for the existing buildings only, and that if any of those buildings were to be reconstructed, that they would have to meet the current bylaw regulations for setbacks, and that the barns on the residential portion could not be used for housing of livestock. So that's all I have to add. I know the applicants are in person in attendance, and I'd be happy to give them an opportunity to add anything they want as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of this severance, there was a lot of misconception of the word barn to shed. There hasn't been livestock on that property for 20 years, and everything that's there, all those buildings are used as a drive shed for farm machinery, and that's the way it has been. So, I mean, going forward, if anyone was to build a barn, they'd have to follow the municipal rules, which would be the way it would be. So With the reason why we wanted the shed portion for the house is it also makes a buffer to the dwelling owner, who's going to be my son, from the land and the farm. So it's more, his. And plus, if he wanted to build a shed in the future to fix his car or whatever, he's now got that. He doesn't have to worry about going through this whole thing. So that's the reason why we wanted to change the lot line in the first place.
Okay, thank you. I have to ask, is there comment from public on this application? Is there any comment? I'll ask once more, is there any comment from public on this? Seeing none, council, questions, comments? You have a question?
I don't have any question. I was just going to support the applicants. Let's
Your motion is to grant it,
grant it.
grant the application. Okay, thank you. Is I'll get a seconder for that first. Is there a seconder for that?
Get the table.
Okay, moved by Councillor Daigle. Now, question. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Rupp. My question is for the applicant. There's a red shed that looks like it's leaning over pretty bad. Do you intend to keep that or is that going to be removed?
It's still there because of the pressure tank for the water well is in that building. So it needs to stay, but that building has been checked by the engineer, and it is structurally strong. It's been there for a long time, so.
Yeah, it looks like 100 years or more.
Yeah, it's not as bad as you think. The steel is still pretty good on the roof when they actually had good steel, so.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor, if you went over there with some paint, you could paint it for them. And any other questions on this? We do have a recommendation to grant this. We did grant this initially. It's now the zoning. And so there's no other questions on this in favor of the motion to grant this application. That is carried. That is carried. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Our next item is a notice of public meeting to consider application B2 2026 ZBA 03 2026 located at 35065 Cassidy Road. And Paul, welcome. Ashley, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. So the subject lands have a municipally known address of 35065 Cassidy Road. So the image on the screen before you is just the overview aerial, and I'm just going to go into a zoomed in image so you can specifically see the lot that they're proposing to sever off. So the lands are located north of McGilvery Drive, which is County Road number 24 on the west side of Cassidy Road. They currently contain one single detached dwelling, one storage barn proposed to be converted to a residential accessory structure, one grain bin proposed to be removed, and agricultural lands and crop production, as well as just mixed vegetation like mature trees in a grassed area. The purpose and effect of the application for consent is to sever a surplus farm dwelling from an existing 50-acre farm parcel as a result of farm consolidation, and the associated zoning bylaw to implement that consent is also before council this evening. The lands are designated as an agricultural area in the official plan, and they are currently zoned as general agricultural in the zoning bylaw. The severed parcels propose to have a frontage of approximately 85 meters on Cassidy Road and an area of approximately 1 hectare or 2.47 acres. This parcel would retain the existing dwelling and the barn to be reclassified as an accessory structure. The severed parcel would be rezoned to a site-specific agricultural small holding to recognize the rural residential use of the lands and to allow that storage barn to be converted to a residential accessory structure with the height as it exists today, which is roughly 9.1 meters or 29.86 feet. In accessory structures, that is measured as from grade to peak. So if the structure is removed, demolished, or destroyed, a new building would be required to comply with the zoning bylaw. And then in terms of the retained parcel, it's proposed to have a broken frontage on Cassidy Road, and it would contain just agricultural lands and crop production. This parcel would be rezoned also to a site-specific general agricultural zone, but that would just strictly be to prohibit the establishment of a new dwelling on it. Policy context is provided in my report, and the application was circulated in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act. The AuSable Bayfield Conservation Authority, Canada Post, Integris, and the county engineer noted no comments or concerns. Emergency services at the county, the building department, the drainage superintendent, as well as the infrastructure and operations department did just note standard comments for a consent of this nature. And Lake Huron and Elgin Area Water Supply did note that there's an easement on the retained parcel at the southwest corner, but they did note that it's not anticipated to be impacted by the severed parcel, so generally no concerns. No formal comments were submitted by members of the public prior to my report submission. However, again, we are here to receive verbal feedback as well before that decision is made. And I will ultimately just keep my recommendation short and sweet, but as noted in my report, the consent and the zoning bylaw amendment for a surplus farm dwelling severance are very standard for this application. And staff are recommending that the consent be approved with those standard conditions in my report by the committee and that the zoning be approved in principle this evening by council. And I'm here if you have any questions.
Thank you, Ashley. Mr. Hendricks, anything you'd like to add?
Thank you, council. I will just let council know that the owners of the property are present if there are any questions for them. I agree with the submissions of my friend, and I agree that the conditions are the standard conditions that you would see in this type of severance. I did want to just flag for council, when I saw condition 10, which is that we needed to get written confirmation from the Lake Huron and Elgin area water supply system, that the severance didn't affect the pipeline that runs on the very edge of the farmland. You can't even see it in the picture. I reached out to them just because I'd never seen that kind of condition. I wanted to make sure I could actually satisfy it. And I already have the letter saying they're satisfied. It's from the Lake Huron primary water supply system. And I don't think we need to amend it. It's just the name slightly different, but I followed the website and I actually spoke to the person who had given the comments in the first place.
Ashley?
Yeah, just to add, I would echo the sentiment. It's certainly unique. I've not come across a severance where there's that type of easement, but I am satisfied with the written confirmation that we received this evening. So in theory, once the appeal period's up, that condition will be cleared off.
Okay, thank you. Anything else you'd like to add at this time?
No.
No? Okay, once again, I have to ask if there's anyone in public that would like to speak on this matter? Ask once more, anyone in public who'd like to speak on this matter? Seeing none, council. Questions on this? We have a recommendation in front of us. What's your wish? Moved by Councillor Irwin, seconded by Councillor Daigle. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, council.
I believe that is, now we have department reports. Yes, we need a motion to come out of public meeting and to go into regular council meeting. Moved by Councillor Daigle, Councillor Keogh, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. All right, department reports, but the first one is still yours. And that is a report from our planner, and that is the Master Condominium and ZBA Consolidated.
I think I'm going to ride home in silence after this. So thank you, Mayor Robb. So the purpose of this report is to provide an evaluation and a recommendation to council for the proposed residential subdivision, condominium, and then the associated zoning bylaw amendment to go with that. As part of the applications, numerous studies were prepared by qualified professionals in their fields, as were attached to the agenda, and these won't be new to you. They were attached to the public open house and public meeting agenda as well as applicable. The subject lands are located on the north side of William Street West and are northwest of Union Street and William Street West. For local context, they're located just north of the Gold Leaf development in Park Hill. The lands are approximately 4.7 acres in size, and they are currently vacant with areas of mixed vegetation. These applications will be familiar for council as we did hold a public open house, the developer held a public open house in 2024, and a formal public meeting was held by the municipality on October 1st of 2025. All feedback provided was considered, and the comment response matrix was also provided by the developer's agent, as was attached to the agenda. Any items that could reasonably be addressed have been or will be as a draft condition. The subdivision is proposed to contain 13 single detached residential dwellings. So I'm just going to pull up the image here. So that's the yellow area. These will be accessed by a public road. And then the condominiums proposed to contain 14 townhouse units, and these will be accessed by a private road, and the condos are on the pink on the screen there. So in total, the development will have 27 proposed dwelling units. The application was circulated in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act, and all comments provided to date are detailed in my report, as well as in the attached comment response matrix. I will note we've had no additional comments provided since the public meeting was held. Planning staff have conducted a comprehensive review of the applications as well as the associated studies and reports, and we have consulted with stakeholders, agencies, and council through the public meeting process, as well as members of the public. So my report is quite detailed. I think this one's about 20 pages long, so I'm not going to read it all to you verbatim, but I would just summarize it by saying that the developments located within the Park Hill urban settlement area on lands identified as a residential area in the municipality's official plan. Settlement areas are required by policy stemming from the province down to the municipality that these areas are to be the focus of growth and development. And the development proposed will have a mix of single detached and townhome dwellings, contributing to a diverse range and mix of housing options, while maintaining compatibility with the existing dwelling types in the abutting residential neighborhood. To further ensure compatibility, a condition has been included to require a 1.8 meter high board-on-board wood fencing without gates along the lot lines abutting existing residential parcels. In addition to the fencing, a landscaping strip is also required on the east side of the condominium lands. The municipality for these particular applications will require cash in lieu of parkland as opposed to land dedication. This was determined in consultation with the municipality's director of community services. This money will go into the municipality's parkland reserve and can be directed toward the enhancement and maintenance of existing parkland assets within the municipality. Municipal services are the preferred method of servicing within urban settlement areas. Capacity must be allocated in accordance with the allocation bylaw. And further, a hold will be placed on the entirety of the property through the zoning bylaw amendment in which its removal is contingent upon confirmation of adequate servicing capacity, a dedicated servicing allocation, and the execution of the subdivision and condominium agreement. That all being said, detailed engineering design is to be completed and approved by the municipality prior to entering into those agreements. So simply put, the draft approval tonight's just for the lot fabric. There's a lot of engineering work to still be done. The proposed zoning would implement a site-specific site-specific residential density 1 zone on the subdivision lands and a residential density 2 zone on the condo lands, as well as an environmental protection zone on the rear of 2 lots in the subdivision. So that's just the green highlighted area. And this is because of the environmental lands that are adjacent to the site. I would just note that the buffer area is built into that EP zoning, so the lands will be quite protected from that perspective from a zoning lens. Based on the analysis provided in my report and having regard for the material and technical reports prepared by the qualified professionals, as well as all agency and staff comments and input received through the open house and public meeting process, we are of the opinion that the applications are consistent with the PPS and conform to the county and North Middlesex official plan. So staff are recommending that council endorse the draft plan of subdivision and condominium with the conditions outlined, and that would be then forwarded to the county for approval, and that the zoning bylaw be passed by local council this evening. And I'm here if you have any questions.
Thanks, Ashley. Questions from council? Councillor Knellison.
Thank you. I don't know, Sam, if you're aware of this or not, or Ashley, but given that that used to be a brickyard there, is this an industrial section? Is it not a brownfield?
Go ahead, Ashley.
Thank you, through Mayor Rob. So as part of their complete application, they were required to do remediation works, and we're satisfied that that's been satisfied at this point in time.
So that will have to be done yet.
It's been completed.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? So I do have a question, Ashley. On that map, it's showing in the on the condominium side that it's a dead end. So my concern, and I would ask our chief, do you have any concerns? I'm just looking, how do emergency vehicles get in and out of there? Because it does seem to me that they could just drop down to William Street and have another exit. And so it's just a question that I have. I'm always concerned when these are built that we can get in and out of there with emergency vehicles, ambulance, fire trucks, police, any of that stuff. And I'm just wondering your opinion on that, Chief.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. I don't see any concerns with it, but we can certainly look closer if you need, if need be. But I don't see any concerns with the way this is presented.
Okay.
It'd be a one way in, one way out, but similar to other condo developments. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Ashley, go ahead.
Yeah, no, thank you. And this application is a little bit unique in that our previous fire chief was also on the application review prior to his retirement. But I would just note that we can ensure there's sufficient turning radius and truck turning movement during the detailed design stage of the engineering. So so long as the fire chief's satisfied that generally he's okay with that layout, we can get the details worked out in the future.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Daigle.
Where the road could come down to William Street, whose ownership does that go in?
Thank you, through Mayor Ropp. So my understanding is that this would be a private condominium corporation. So that would essentially be maintained as like a grassed area, most likely, maintained by the condo corp.
Okay. Any other questions from council? If not, we have we're looking to endorse this. What's the wish of council? You move to endorse it, moved by Deputy Mayor Hodgins, second by Councillor Keogh. No, sorry, by Councillor Nerda. You're seconding that? Okay, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Ashley. Our next is OPA for 18 Northwoods. And Ashley, I believe that's yours once more, isn't it?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Ropp. So this is my last one tonight. So the purpose of this report is to provide an evaluation and recommendation to council for a proposed official plan amendment that would facilitate an expansion of the Elsa Craig urban settlement area for a future residential plan of subdivision. Just noting that tonight, council is specifically here to make a decision on the OPA and whether these lands are added or not. And then any associated zoning or future plan of subdivision will be dealt with through those respective processes in the future. Just essentially, first we need to know if the lands are coming into the boundary or not. The subject lands are located in the southern area of Elsa Craig on the west side of Petty Street, otherwise known as County Road number 19. The lands are currently vacant and contain agricultural lands and crop production, as well as woodlands and some ravine area as well. The lands have approximately 151 meters of frontage on Petty Street, and they are approximately 48.68 acres in size as a whole. Petty Street is classified as a county arterial road. So a portion of the subject lands, approximately 3.4 hectares or 8.4 acres, are currently already within the Elsa Craig urban settlement area boundary. So I'm just going to pull up the map here to give you an idea of that. So this area here highlighted in blue is within the boundary already, and that's this area here, just where my mouse is highlighted in yellow. These lands are designated as a residential area. The official plan amendment would bring an additional 4.2 hectares or 10.4 acres that are currently outside of the boundary and designated as an urban reserve area in the North Middlesex official plan, and that would bring them into the settlement area and would designate them also as a residential area. So that's the portion just to the west of what's already in the boundary there. This would result in the subject lands having a total area in the settlement area boundary of approximately 7.6 hectares or 18.78 acres, and this would be used for future residential development. The remainder of the parcel would stay outside of the settlement area boundary. So this application was circulated in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act, and council will recall a public meeting being held by the municipality in December of 2025. All comments received to date have been outlined in detail in my report and again attached on the comment response matrix provided by the agent. But I would note that in my opinion, a lot of these comments will be predominantly addressed through a future residential plan of subdivision process, and again, something dealt with through that process. Policy context is outlined in detail in my report. Again, this is a 24-page report. I cannot underscore enough how significant the policy context is for this particular application. As council is aware, the province replaced the former provincial policy statement with the provincial planning statement at the end of 2024. With this, significant changes were made to land use planning policy in Ontario, and as such, the county and municipalities' official plans are both in the process of being updated to reflect the new PPS. One of the most significant changes in the PPS is that the province removed the requirement for municipal comprehensive reviews for settlement area boundary expansions and now permits for privately initiated developer applications outside of that comprehensive review process, provided the criteria established in the policy are met. Another significant change is that growth projections are now required to be based on Ministry of Finance projections. So one of the first criteria in the PPS for an expansion to a settlement area is to demonstrate the need. As such, as part of the application, a residential land needs assessment was prepared by the developer's consultants, dated April 29th, 2025. Staff note that the growth analysis review as part of the county's official plan review is dated April 25th, 2025. And this is based, the county's one is based on the most recent population projections, and more recent than that necessarily mentioned in the land needs assessment. The land needs assessment does largely rely on the 2020 projections and does reference the updated Ministry of Finance projections. However, there are different growth assumptions assumed between the two. Currently, right now, your official plan as it stands today projects out for a 20-year planning horizon. However, 30 years is what we're looking at with the new updated policies. So overall, there does appear to be some misalignment between the land needs assessment and the growth analysis review, with differences in terms of your growth assumptions, your persons per unit, and your intensification targets. But both documents generally indicate that ongoing growth pressures within North Middlesex, particularly in Elsa Craig, are expected, although the precise magnitude of future demand varies depending on which growth scenario you're applying. So for the land needs assessment, the developer's consultant applied the high growth scenario, noting that the growth analysis review that the county had completed noted a medium high is ambitious but possible. So there is a little bit of discrepancy there. Additional criteria predominantly centered on the protection of agricultural land. So I would note that Middlesex County is unique in that all of our agricultural land is classified by the province as prime agricultural. And this is based on your soil classification. So as this makes a lot of sense when you're seeing the farming community, but for this particular site, there's different classifications of soil within it. From the agricultural impact assessment that we received, and we also did have peer reviewed by our own third-party reviewer, they do concur that there's not necessarily class 1 soils on the property, predominantly class 2 and 3. In terms of the North Middlesex official plan, these lands are designated as an urban reserve area already, which means that they are outside of your settlement area boundary, but they are intended to be protected from intensive agricultural use so that they can essentially be considered for future development purposes in the future. So based on the analysis in my report, staff are of the opinion that the criteria established through the provincial planning statement for a privately initiated urban settlement area boundary expansion appears to have been satisfied at this point in time. Staff strongly emphasized, and I cannot emphasize this enough, that this recommendation is extremely specific to this limited scale and the specific context of the subject lands, and it's not intended to be precedent setting for broader or speculative settlement area boundary expansions in the municipality, particularly in advance of the completion of the county and municipal official plan reviews and the associated comprehensive land needs assessment that we will be completing as part of that. So for my analysis here, we're comparing a land needs assessment to a growth analysis review. It's not exactly comparing apples to apples, but we did really analyze that in detail. Staff further note that the ongoing official plan review processes are intended to provide that coordinated and comprehensive framework for settlement area boundary planning, and that advancing site-specific expansions in advance of their completion may fragment the process and undermine the intent of achieving a complete long-term growth management strategy. Council must be aware that while the PPS permits proponents to bring forward proposals such as this, it does impact and limit future comprehensive decisions that council may wish to make regarding the allocation of growth and where your growth is going. And it could lessen if any, lands are to be designated through that OP review process. So staff are ultimately recommending the OPA be adopted by local council and forwarded to the county for consideration of approval. However, again, just noting this is extremely specific to the specific property. And I'm here if you have any questions.
Thank you, Ashley. Questions from council. Who wants to start? Councillor Daigle.
Thank you. The woodlot area, is it just to remain a woodlot? And is it going to be blocked off from the development? Because everybody and their brother and sister will be walking dogs through there because they'll have access off the road. And I'm sure we'll get motorized vehicles in there because of the access to the road, like dirt bikes and the like. We had that problem in the Conservation Authority, the woodlots there. They've ruined the trails. What's being done to protect this woodlot?
Thank you, through Mayor Ropp. So right now, those lands are proposed to remain outside of the boundary, which provides a layer of protection for them from development. But I would also just note that they are designated as significant woodlands, meaning that there is also that extra protection at the county level from clear cutting and removal of trees and that sort of thing. During the detailed design process and when we really get into the nitty gritty, we know that we have to come up with a solution there. So I certainly appreciate the comments made this evening, and we'll take that into consideration as we progress through that detailed design.
Thank you.
Other questions? No other questions? Okay, what's your wish? Counselor Irwin,
I'll move the recommendation, your worship.
you move the recommendation. Is there
Yeah.
a seconder for that? Deputy Mayor Hodgins, discussion on it? None? Okay,
So we're talking about putting this in urban reserve for over the next 30 years? Is that your recommendation?
Sorry, thank you through Mayor Rob. So right now it is designated in your official plan already as an urban reserve area. So the municipality at some point in time recognized that this is probably a logical area for expansion. That being said, our comprehensive review process is generally where we look at that and make sure that, you know, everything aligns where the growth is going to go. So the specific context is very nuanced, being that part of the lands are already within the boundary and part of them are out. But just recognizing that the municipality has designated those as an urban reserve area previously.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Irwin, Counselor Daigle. Sorry
Thank-
about that.
Thank you for the mistake. No. The land's water and sewer service. The main that goes towards Nairn, is it going to be large enough to take off for this many new units and bring that many units on into the sewer?
So through your worship to the councillor, so if council will recall at the last meeting, we had a similar discussion. Staff have already flagged that sanitary is a concern of ours here, and it's something that we are actively looking into as part of the engineering. So if for whatever reason there are any issues, those will obviously have to be dealt with through the engineering and construction process. But it is something that we've flagged to the applicant that they do have to look into. And if there is an issue found, it's something that will have to be fixed. Both water and sanitary, yes. Yep.
Ashley?
I would just add to that too. So when the zoning component comes back before council, we can implement a hold at that point in time, as we would standardly do for servicing confirmation and then the appropriate agreements be entered into. And then that's something that wouldn't be lifted until those conditions are met, essentially. I would also just note too that you now have a formal allocation policy in place, so that provides you some extra teeth.
Any other questions before we vote on this? It has been moved and seconded, so all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Ashley. Our next one is from Deputy Treasurer, Treasury First Quarter Report. Neil.
The 2026 Q1 report provides council with a short overview of some of the many activities and accomplishments of the Treasury Division during the first quarter of 2026. I would go through the details of the report. However, I think it's fairly specific as it is. Council may review the report at their discretion. But overall, this form of quarterly reporting is new for the Treasury Division of the municipality. Council is encouraged to provide discussion and feedback on the direction of these reports for the future, either here today in council or directly to myself or the Director of Finance. Quarterly financial reporting, including variance analysis, will be implemented separately from these quarterly activities and accomplished reports. So that is sort of a different type of reporting and is not intended to be covered here. But if council has any recommendations or suggestions or questions, I'll take those now.
Thank you, Neil. Just before I turn it over to council, will we have for the second quarter a budget variance report by the second quarter?
Yes, I believe there will be a Q2 variance
Okay.
report provided
Okay.
by the director.
Okay, thank you. Other questions from council? Councilor Knellison.
I just want to make a comment to the deputy treasurer that I really appreciated your effort in submitting this report, and I found it very informative. Good work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? I'm sorry, Neil, I didn't mean to.
No, I just wanted to thank the councillor.
Okay, sorry. If there's no other questions, we have a recommendation to receive this information. Councilor Keogh, Councilor Daigle, all in favor? That is carried. The next one is on our infrastructure and operations first quarter, and Sam, that's yours.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship, and to you and all the members of council. Before you this evening is report DIO 26 of 2026 that provides a Q1 update report from the Infrastructure and Operations Department. Key highlights of my report, you'll note that the Drainage Division continues to see an increased workload. However, even with that, they continue to make strong progress in all the projects that they have. That includes billing, their construction projects, all the maintenance projects they have going on, and all the regulatory compliance they have to do. So again, we're seeing very strong work from our drainage group, and it's excellent to see. Major infrastructure projects that have progressed so far. So again, the Park Hill Lagoon dredging is completed. We're working on that memo that council had approved through budget with RVA to look at what's next for that site there. So we expect that to be wrapped up in the next couple of months here, and that will be an update provided to council when that time comes. And again, you'll note several other major updates in there in the way of what was approved through budget, such as purchasing the meter reader, which was approved through budget, and a number of other items there that have progressed since the budget was approved in the first quarter. You'll note again that development activity remains strong, and staff within infrastructure and operations remain heavily involved in that process in all the many active ongoing files, obviously in consultation with all the other great staff here and the county planning staff as well, and Middlesex staff as well. Public Works has transitioned obviously away from the winter operations season, finally, knock on wood, to spring and summer programming. You'll note that some messaging went out that calcium and the gravel program is going to be starting tomorrow. So again, we're picking up with a lot of the spring summer program activities that we're ongoing now after transitioning out of the winter season. Includes road maintenance, ditching, seasonal services, things of that nature. And then finally, Fleet. Fleet is one that we've brought to council on a number of occasions now. It's a process that we have talked about changing, and with council support, it's something that we've been working on. So Q1 for Fleet from the INO perspective, and again, this is with all the departments involved. It's been very, very busy. We're all working together to try and build this process from the ground up because we're somewhat starting from scratch here, but we've made a lot of headway and it's been very successful so far. So that's been a big advancement in the infrastructure and operations department, and especially goes out to all the departments for their support. And then obviously led through Mr. McLeod and Celeste in our group there. There are no direct financial implications for this report, and obviously all the finance stuff will be reported on through the variance process. So the only recommendation in front of council this evening is that council receives report DIO 26 of 2026 regarding the infrastructure and operations department 2026 Q1 report for information, and both myself and Brandon are here for any questions. Thanks.
Thanks, Sam. Questions for Sam or Brandon on this? Councillor Daigle?
Just a quick question. It's not part of your report, but the switch over from Integris to, I think it was called Earth, is that going well? Are they up and running on our streetlights?
Yeah, through your worship of the councillor, I'll start, and if Brandon has anything to add, he's more than welcome to. It's been very productive. We've had a lot of really good meetings with them. They're very open to feedback. Any issues we've had, they've been on right away. They've been very receptive with us to making sure the billing process is perfect for what we need it for. I think one of the issues we had previously was a lot of lack of information with a lot of the billing that we were dealing with, and they've been very apt to work with us on improving that. And we actually just talked about getting another meeting with them in the short order here just to kind of check in and see how things are going. So it's been, at least from my perspective, a very positive switch.
Go ahead.
Through your worship of the councillor, they've been very helpful to help with community services with some of their projects too, to help with tug and whirlpool and any ball lights that need replaced or help.
Oh.
They're willing to help in that end too.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Any other questions? Councillor Knellison?
Yes, my question is to do with the Phragmites control and then expanding it. Are you working in collaboration with the Salvo Bayfield, or is this something we're doing on our own?
Through your worship of the councillor. So what we did last year, we carried a small budget amount just to try and do a pilot internally ourselves. So we did do that last year, and it was fairly successful. So what we did this year and what we budgeted for was somewhat expanding that. I wouldn't call it a full-blown program, but a bit of a larger scale pilot. So we plan on just doing that ourselves and within our own areas, separate to conservation.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Sam? Go ahead, Councillor Keel.
Middlesex County is on board with the Phragmites control as well. Is that right?
But through your worship of the councillor, they do it. We have talked to them about it, but at this point, whatever we're doing is on our own corridors as opposed to county corridors. But yes, they do it with their own stuff.
Any other questions? Seeing no other questions, mover to accept this for information, Councillor Daigle, Councillor Nerda, all in favor? Carried. The next one is Chief Jones, and that is for your first quarter.
Thank you, Mayor. Before you tonight is the Fire and Emergency Services first quarter report, 01 to 2026 from the Fire and Emergency Services Department for information. As you'll see that the call volume is is up slightly from last year, with the majority of the calls being medical and in nature. 2 captains were promoted to district chief positions. My apologies, my screen's so crazy here. 2 captains have been promoted to district chief positions. Currently, 2 vacancies at the Elsa Craig Station and 4 at the Park Hill Station. And we're looking to backfill 1 captain position in Elsa Craig. Bird permits are stable from that, or consistent with last year. And that's been quite busy in the last few days with the change in the weather. The report provides an overview of the Fire Emergency Services Department's first quarter activities for 2026. Anik and I attended the OAFC Labor Relations Seminar in January. It was quite informational. And I also attended the Northeastern Fire Education Conference in March, in which there's a report for your information later. Training requirements related to mandatory certification are on schedule. Bunker gear replacement gear is in the process of being sized. And the SCBA replacement committee has been formed, and the first meeting is next Monday. No financial implications of this report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Scott. Questions for Scott? Councillor Keel?
Thank you, Mayor Rob. Chief Jones, is the North Middlesex going to have another recruitment intake for firefighters?
Through the mayor to the councillor, yes, we're hoping in June.
Okay. Any other questions? Deputy Mayor Hodgins?
Thank you, Mayor Rob. To our chief, I seen there was 3 alarm calls and 4 other calls. Number one, is there any big problems with carbon monoxide, false readings, or have you had any, is that what you're talking about other calls? Is the carbon monoxide most houses, I think it is now mandatory to have them in. I had any calls to them, that's what I'm saying. And if you know what I mean.
I do. Through the mayor to the deputy mayor, we have certainly had carbon monoxide calls in the past. What more is most common in the carbon monoxide alarm type calls is false alarms, where the alarm is most times out of date or malfunction. So we do have alarms that we provide people if they don't have one, and recommend that they get a new one. But it's not been a huge burden on us by any means.
That's good. That's good. Other questions for the chief? Seeing no other questions, we have a recommendation to accept this report. Deputy Mayor Hodgins, Councillor Daigle, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Thanks, Scott. Ashley, you're next in RTC Corporate Services first quarter report.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor, to the members of council. This report provides an overview of the Corporate Services Department first quarter of 2026. I'm glad to have the opportunity to highlight my department's achievements, as we're largely considered behind the scenes. From a governance perspective, corporate services staff facilitated all council and statutory meetings this quarter, including regular council, quarter revision, planning, public meetings, committee of adjustment, drainage, and closed session. Each of these meetings operate under a distinct legislative requirement, and staff ensured compliance with all procedural notice and record-keeping obligations therein. Significant work has also been undertaken this quarter to strengthen committee governance. This included training committee secretaries, reviewing terms of reference, and updating the municipal website to improve transparency and public access to committee information. In support of council decision-making, staff facilitated the processing of 13 policies, 40 bylaws, 11 agreements, and over 100 council resolutions this quarter, ensuring all items were coordinated, reviewed, and implemented in accordance with legislative requirements. A key priority for us this quarter had been the preparation and ongoing preparation, I should say, for the 2026 municipal election. Work to date has included development of the election webpage, which is now live, implementation of a communication strategy with our communications team,
preparation of candidate nomination packages, ongoing maintenance of the voters list, and drafting the clerk's elections policies and procedures. Staff have also coordinated regional candidate information session, which is going to take place this April 28th at the Coldstream Community Center. The link has been posted and we've been advertising for that. I'd encourage any interested parties to take a look. And we are also participating in a joint procurement process for the Compliance Audit Committee. With information management, staff processed 6 Freedom of Information requests and also 74 internal information requests this quarter, reflecting a growing demand for records and information services. I'd like to note that processing 6 information requests through the Freedom of Information process has surpassed the information requests that we received total for 2025. So this demonstrates an increased demand for records and those services. Bylaw enforcement activity remains steady with 35 active files this quarter and 83% closure rate. Majority of files related to zoning, tidy yard, and animal control matters, with an anticipated increase as the season ramps up for grass. Enforcement services were supported through both internal and a contract partnership to ensure timely response and continuity of service. So looking ahead, key priorities will include continued election readiness, review of the draft noise bylaw that council directed staff to investigate, and support for the implementation of a parking bylaw pending tonight's conversation alongside ongoing operational responsibilities. So in closing, first quarter reflects high level of activity across the department, continued focus on legislative compliance, service delivery, and operational improvement. The recommendation before council tonight is that council receive the report entitled RTC Corporate Services Q1 2026 for information. Thank you, and I would be pleased to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ashley. Questions for Ashley? Deputy Mayor Hodgins.
Thank you, Mayor Rob, to our clerk. Moving forward in this being an election year, a voters list update. Is that coming from MPAC or is that changed or is there another way of coming about it, and have we received it yet? And what can you tell us about it?
Sure, thank you, and through you. Elections management this election cycle is actually being handled through Elections Ontario. So that portal moved the relationship to Elections Ontario. We have, as council approved, a relationship with DataFix, which allowed us to retain the services for updating and manifesting the voters list throughout the term this year. So we've been ongoing adding and deleting from that. We are working significantly to get us up to speed in preparation for September, which some of you may know, which is when you will receive your voters list if you decide to run again.
Okay, any other questions for Ashley at this time? Seeing no other questions, we have a recommendation to take for information. Councillor Daigle, Councillor Irwin, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Our next one, Brandon, I believe you're up, and that is on your first quarter.
Yep. So Mayor Rob, members of council, the report in front of you is the Community Services and Economic Development Q1 report. The report just outlines some operational highlights, some significant events we had on our ice surface from January to March, including the January Silver Stick. We hosted the U9 Provincial Championships in partnership with St. Mary's this year. We had the PJHL All-Star Game at our rink for the first time, which looks to be an annual thing. We had a significant run from our junior hockey club, which drew many people and many challenges into the building. We also had Parkhill Skating Club's 50th anniversary showcase this year. Throughout this ice season, what we did find was our ice allocation policy had issues. We worked with the user groups to resolve those. Those have come through policy and since passed. And we've also spent a lot of time in preparations for a Dallas Smith concert in May, which we're expecting about 1,300 people to attend. On the capital side of things, we've done the medical center flooring upgrade. We've had our fleet department, in consultation with our manager, replace the landscape trailer as well as the pickup truck. Those have both been procured. And the light retrofit at the arena has also been procured. All 4 of these projects did come in under the budgeted amount. And then we also had our childcare come online in our Park Hill Community Center, so they were fully operational as of January. On the economic development side, we continue to promote our community improvement plan, and we have had some amendments to it. As you'll see following, we do have quite a few reports coming through and applications. We have continued our business visitation programs throughout North Middlesex, including Carolot Country Clothier. We successfully hosted the annual or North Middlesex Wedding Show. I'll get Felicia to speak a little bit more on that in a sec, as well as the Ticket to the Trades event. And our communication channels continues to be quite busy in terms of getting everything out to the residents on time to the best of our ability. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Felicia to talk a few stats on the North Middlesex Wedding Show, which really highlights what we do for some local businesses here through that show, as well as share some Ticket to the Trades info.
Thank you, and to the mayor and members of council. So just about the North Middlesex Wedding Show, this was the second annual wedding show. And this year, the event welcomed approximately 300 attendees, demonstrating strong community interest and engagement. As a direct result of the show, we have received 4 civil ceremony bookings as well as 2 facility rental bookings. In addition, I have received several participating vendors that have shared positive feedback, noting that they have already received a good amount of business following the event. Many expressed their appreciation to the municipality of North Middlesex for the opportunity to participate and connect with potential clients. So overall, it was a great, successful event. And then just to highlight the Ticket to the Trades, so this was the 4th annual Ticket to the Trades. And Thames Valley District School Board did a promotional highlight video that I would just like to share briefly to council and residents. So just give me 1 sec, I just need to share my screen. Let's try that. We're having technical difficulties, so I can share it to all the counselors on email, and it is posted on our municipal Facebook page. So anyone can go and look at it there, as well as the North Middlesex District High School also shared it on their page. And I can make it available on our website as well.
Okay, thanks, Felicia. Questions for Brandon or Felicia on this report? Counselor Canellison, and then Counselor Nerda.
My question is for, I guess, Brendan, the Director of Economic Development. In your report, I read it with a great deal of interest, particularly the economic development component of it. What, if anything, have you done to reach out to businesses that want to maybe establish a presence here in the municipality or an expansion of business? Is there anything to report on that area?
So in terms of current businesses, we do as much outreach as we can. We did lose 2 storefronts in Park Hill. We visit them, we ask them what happened, what their challenges were to try and improve their overall experience within North Middlesex. when businesses do go through expansion, such as I'll use Park Hill Meats as an example, we reach out to them. We ask them how we can help plan the grand opening, if there's any CIP grant incentives that would help fit their expansions. As you'll see through some of the CIP applications coming, for some of the businesses, the CIP stream certainly helps them get started. We look at one of them being the Crown and Foxes coming through, which is a business that needed some funding coming through us to help assist, as well as we have Royal Albatross, who also did the office expansion, which you guys recently approved in terms of the servicing side. So we reach out to them to see on our side, is there anything we can do in terms of funding, promotion, to try and help ensure that their success. In terms of other businesses that are, say, I'll call them stale or starting to think about maybe divesting themselves of properties, things like that, we have started to compile a log of available properties in North Middlesex. And then we are having meetings. We had actually someone in today who had an interest in a business where we shared what we thought may be compatible properties for them. If that was the case, if they were to proceed, what their steps were, meeting with the planner and making sure that they're involved in those conversations, and then going from there. So we have had talks with numerous people on that front as well, whether it be a new idea, whether it be an existing idea that they want to make bigger and better, and just how they do that, and then working with our planning, building, and infrastructure team to make sure that it can be a success.
Any other question? Oh, Councilor Nerda, you had a question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This question is for you, Brandon. When can we get a report on our new community center and if it came under budget or over budget?
Through the mayor to the councilor, I can try and have that by the end of May too.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions at this time? Seeing no other questions, we need a mover and a seconder for this information. Councilor Irwin, Deputy Mayor Hodgins, all in favor? That is carried. Thanks. Our next one is the Director of Economic Development. Brandon, I believe this is yours again, and it's for the Canadian plowing match.
So Mayor Ott, members of council, we did have a request come through at a CAO's meeting. This was passed along by Carolyn, that the Canadian plowing match is coming to Adelaide Metcalfe. The CAOs met as a group and thought a sponsorship, an equal sponsorship from each community to support this event, which really is tied to rural and agriculture, which meets a lot of our municipalities' bread and butter, I'll call it. So essentially where they're having it is Adelaide Metcalfe, and staff are proposing that we support them with $1,000 bronze level sponsorship. We will also be doing a gift basket of local goods for this event. Generally, I think they expect 800 to 1,000 people coming into the community, just from all over Canada for this. And then with that, we will be promoting North Middlesex as a destination to travel on their off days.
All right, questions from council? Comments from council? We have a recommendation in front of you for $1,000 donation. Are you moving that, Councilor Nerda? Councilor Nerda moves, seconded by Councilor Keogh. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Thanks, Brandon. Our next report is yours again, and that is our first one for CIP program, and I will let you get started.
So I will let Felicia take the reports on the actual recommendations, but what I want to speak to council at this time is the financial aspect of this, because this is the first time that we've actually been making recommendations that we may not be able to financially fulfill, which the third report speaks to funding from the county being the difference maker in whether we can actually approve the full amount or not. So we will be sending these off to the county once approved, and then the county will match if it fits their funding model, which we believe they all do. And then if matched, they will all go through. If we are denied funding on the county side, we won't be able to. Hopefully we can still get all three of these in, but it will definitely affect the pot. They are ordered in the way they came in. So how we allocate CIP funding is first come, first serve. So the first report before you is the first one that came in of this batch. So when you are making your approvals, that is the order that we will divvy out the funding. Our belief is that we will still have funds left over once the county matches the funds. If for whatever reason county does not, we will take it as far as it goes in that order. So I just wanted to point that out before Felicia goes through these reports, because they are all tied together in this. So
Thank you. I think that's important. The council knows that they come, first serve. Go ahead, Felicia.
Thank you, and thank you to Brandon and through the mayor to all members of council. So before you is our first CIP application for Royal Albatross. So the applicant has submitted a CIP application for improvements to 201 Duchess Avenue, including building upgrades and in addition to support business growth and year-round operations. Based on the submitted documentation and eligibility requirements, the project qualifies for funding of $9,051.20 under the business commercial stream of the CIP. So the proposed motion and staff recommendation is that council receives report DDCS 06 2026 regarding CIP application Royal Albatross Holdings for information, and that council award Royal Albatross Holdings located at 201 Duchess Ave, Park Hill, $3,325.09 towards the construction costs for their beautification program project, and that council award Royal Albatross Holdings located at 201 Duchess Ave, Park Hill, a further $3,226.11 towards the construction costs and $2,500 towards the professional fees associated with the conversion, expansion, and redevelopment program of project. And I'm here for any questions.
Thanks, Felicia. Questions? Question, Councillor Canelson.
Yes, I do. Thank you, through the mayor. Felicia, do we include engineering costs and legal fees in their applications? Because I see this is it's a substantial amount in those two categories.
Thank you, and through the mayor to the councillor. So that is in the conversion, expansion, and redevelopment program project. The $2,500 goes towards those professional fees, and that's the maximum limit.
That's the maximum limit.
Correct,
Okay.
for the CIP program.
Okay, so if it needs to be reduced, that's the first area you look at?
Can you repeat that question? Sorry.
If the amount needs to be reduced as in terms of what's available, that would be the first area you would look at?
There's a little confusion here on this. And
So
Go
I'll
ahead, clear
jump
it.
in. So through the mayor to the councillor, when somebody makes the application, we look at the application that's in front of us first. If the criteria meets what our CIP says, we recommend awarding the entire amount. They got it in first, 2,500 eligible. They show that they've spent, in this case, 5,000 or more on professional fees. We reimburse up to 2,500. The same thing as we go down. That application sits there and it moves on. Then we look at the next one in that lens as well.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions here on this application? Councillor Nerda.
I'd like to move the recommendation.
Oh, moved by Councillor Nerda, seconded by Councillor Irwin. All in favor? Opposed? Oh, in favor? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. All right. That is carried. So application number 2. We do have a couple of people leaving for this. And Felicia, as soon as they. All right.
Okay, thank you, and through you to the rest of members of council. So this is the second CIP application under the same program. So the applicant for 143 Elsa Craig Main Street, this is the Crown and Fox Pub in Elsa Craig, has met all program requirements under the business and commercial stream, submitting the necessary documentation to support required upgrades for NFPA 96 compliance and streetscape improvements. Based on eligibility and project scope, the application has been approved for funding of $12,673 in accordance to the CIP guidelines. So the proposed motion and staff recommendation is that council receives report DDCS 09 of 2026 regarding CIP application 10014988278 Ontario Inc. for information, and that council award 10014982878 Ontario Inc., located at 143 Elsa Craig Main Street. A further $10,000 towards the construction costs and $2,500 towards professional fees and $173 towards permit fees associated with the conversion, expansion, and redevelopment program project. And I'm here for any questions.
Thank you, Felicia. Is there questions on this? No questions on this? We have a recommendation in front of us. Are you moving, Councillor Nerda?
I'll move it.
Moved by Councillor Nerda, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hodgins. In favor? That is carried. Once again, thank you. And our next report is for the CIP program and the application for Carnegie Library.
Thank you, and through you to members of council. So this is the third and final CIP application for tonight. This is for the Park Hill Carnegie Library here in Park Hill. So an application has been submitted under the Business Commercial Beautification Program to replace deteriorating windows at the historic Carnegie Building, home of the Park Hill Artisans Collective, enhancing both the building's functionality and its contribution to the downtown core. The project will improve energy efficiency, safety, and the overall streetscape of a key community asset that supports local artisans and drives foot traffic to surrounding businesses. The applicant has been deemed eligible for $7,894.37 in funding, with approval recommended conditional upon securing 50% cost sharing support from the County of Middlesex to ensure responsible use of municipal funds. So the proposed motion and staff recommendation is that council receives report DDCS 09 of 2026 regarding CIP application Park Hill Carnegie Gallery for information, and that council award the Park Hill Carnegie Gallery located at 233 Park Hill Main Street, Park Hill, $7,894.37 towards the construction costs for their beautification program project, and that council's approval of the application be contingent upon receipt of 50% cost sharing funding from the County of Middlesex under the Community Improvement Plan, failing which the application shall be denied. And I'm here for any questions.
Questions on this? Councillor Nerda.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If this is not if this is our building, shouldn't we be responsible for the windows to make improvements to the window under our capital budget?
Through the mayor to the councillor, certainly that is an approach that we would be able to take if we wanted to. The current leaseholder has indicated that they want to do this project, that they are willing to go through CIP and fund 50% of it themselves through this process. It does fit the CIP criteria for the leaseholder, so.
Thank you, Brandon.
Any other questions on this? No other questions? Moved by Councillor Nerda, is that correct? Moved by Councillor Nerda, seconded by Councillor Dago. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Sam, the next one is you.
The director of community development did not in his report state that the funds from the county are limited this year. And I just want to congratulate staff on how quickly they turned these around, because we have a chance of getting those limited funds while other municipalities are still considering the process. So I think our kudos to our staff for moving so quickly on these, and hopefully some more at the next meeting, because we're in competition with other communities for those funds.
Thank you. Our next item is DIO 36 2026, the Elsa Craig Yard and Leaf Waste Site.
To the mayor and members of council, before you this evening is report DIO 36 of 2026, which provides a further update on what was requested as a look at yard and leaf waste site in Elsa Craig. Again, if council will recall at the last meeting, this was tabled and it was ultimately deferred to look at other options just based on what the constraints at that site were and what else staff might be able to do. So staff took this back to the drawing board. And what we put forward this evening, which is quite a deviation from what was brought forward previously, was under the lens that we wanted to look at bringing a level of service forward, but what could we do based on the monies that we already have available, the staffing that we already have available, and in lieu of really having a site that we could do too much with. So the program put forward in the attached report is that staff are proposing that we do a pilot program at the end of this year, sometime likely around September, October-ish, just depending on obviously the weather, with equipment that we were already planning on renting and that's already in the budget. And then we would just adjust what staff would be doing at that time to provide the necessary staff that we would need to try out this pilot program. So we also proposed that in fairness, we would look to launch the pilot across all the urban areas in the municipality, not just Elsa Craig, but would include Elsa Craig, Park Hill, and Nairn, just to make it more equitable across the urban centers that we have, as opposed to only looking at Elsa Craig. And then this pilot program would obviously allow staff to evaluate what the participation looked like, how well it worked, if it's something that we feel is viable to carry forward with. And if not, obviously, if this is a service that council wishes to continue beyond this year, if this doesn't work, then we can obviously look at other options, which could be to have the same service, but have somebody else do it and pay for it, or revisit having a dedicated site or things of that nature. So this would allow us to at least do a pilot program, and then we could see how that went and kind of make decisions from there. So I'll just summarize or sorry, finalize that thought by saying that what we would propose to do is obviously go through these urban areas. We would propose to collect the materials and then use a piece of equipment that we already have to obviously condense them. Right now, the piece of equipment that we are renting is a sucker unit, but the municipality already has a mulcher unit. So we would obviously look to use what equipment we have available to make the process as efficient as possible. And that's sort of the process that we're going to be looking to do. And again, I'll just remind council that there are no financial implications to this. We are planning on doing it with equipment that we either already own or already plan to rent, and staff that we already have available. So recommendations before council this evening, and then I can open it up for questions, are that council receive report DIO 36 of 2036, or sorry, 2026 for information, and that council direct staff to proceed with a 2026 fall pilot program for a seasonal leaf and yard waste collection servicing Elsa Craig, Park Hill, and Nairn, and that staff report back to council on the outcomes of the program to inform future service considerations. In between Mr. McLeod and myself, happy to answer any questions. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Just before I go to council, Sam, this isn't an ongoing program. This is, you'll find a date and have your leaves out by this date, correct? And then it'll be a one time, and then after that, it would be up to people if they had more leaves to find their, but correct?
Yeah, to your worship, that is correct. It would be a program. We would obviously set targeted dates where folks would have to have their materials out to the curb by X date, and then we would collect it, and it would be a one-time service. Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, turn it over to council. Councilor Canellison.
I'm interested in the collection process. So will people then just be bunching their leaves up at the curb? Will they be in bags or containers, or will they just be blowing around on the road? What's the process?
Through your worship to the councillor, what we've thought about to date was just having folks place it directly at the curb, non-bagged. There's lots of other centers that do this, do things blow around, absolutely, but it obviously makes things the most easy for us from a collection perspective. So that's what we have in mind so far, is just having them collected at the curb, and then we would take them from there.
And where would you dispose of the stuff you've collected?
So what we would plan to do is obviously take the material in the truck, and then once it fills up, we would either bring it to the transfer station where we already store a lot of that material, or we could choose to take it into London directly. But what we've been doing with a lot of that material currently is taking it to Try Recycling in London and disposing of it there. So that's what we would likely look to do here as well.
But there'd be a cost to take to Try Recycling, correct?
There would, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Other questions, comments? Councilor Keel.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. This project probably shouldn't start until at least after the 15th of October, 1st of November, when the leaves are off the trees, or we've had a couple of good frosts by then, hopefully.
To the mayor, to the councillor. Yeah, the machine that we're thinking of using would be a vac and sweeper truck. So yeah, we'd probably do the process of sweeping streets first. It'd be a little later than we would like in the fall. But yeah, that was what we would do. Then once we're done that, we would go into vacuuming leaves. And then if we had time, we'll sweep the streets again to clean up a bit more that maybe was missed.
Okay. Any other questions? Counselor Nerda.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. How are we going to keep track of data collection here?
Through your worship to council, I suppose it is dependent on what data council would like to see. We'll obviously have the material data from what we collect in that we'll track it based on what we dispose of. But certainly from a public communications perspective, I would think that we would obviously trial the program. There'd be lots of communications around it, and then we would certainly look to gather public feedback when we were done. So the data collection side of things will be done as part of the disposal process, and then anything else we would plan to take care of as part of public consultation.
Would you keep track of labor, like hours, I think is how many hours it's going to take for staff? Council, do you have any more, Counselor Nerda, follow up? Go ahead.
I just have a follow-up. Sam, do we know the cost of taking the leaves to try recycling? And will this be a one-day program or would it run for a week, 2 weeks? What does it look like?
Through your worship to the counselor, I don't know the exact fee for try. It's so much a ton we pay to drop off, but leaves don't weigh a lot that much, so it's not horrible on that end. And it'd probably be about a week, I would guess, for operational wise
Yeah.
to do the process. Maybe 2 weeks just to get around all the streets in town. Might give a week to one town, another town, and maybe another week for another town.
Okay.
Just to follow up to that too, and then I'll be done. What is the anticipated staff time required?
Through your worship to the counselor, it'd probably be through a 8-hour normal work hour in day to do that, and probably about 2 staff member tied up to do that process, one driving and one behind sucking up leaves.
So they're going to keep track of that, Counselor, to see how many hours it does take, what our labor costs will be. Okay.
Sure.
Counselor Daigle.
Notification to the people so they know what to expect. Is that going to go out with tax bills and water bills? Just make sure that, you know, a diagram schematic is where you want the leaves placed, what days. Just so nobody can say, oh, I didn't know.
Yeah, through your worship to council, that is certainly stuff we would do. We would obviously need to do a full scale media campaign, if you want to call it that, as it relates to the program. And that would all need to be done. We could choose to do it as part of water bills. We could choose to do it as part of tax bills, or both, or separate. But obviously we would need to reach the people. So we're open to whatever's best.
Well, tax bills hit more than water bills because not everybody has water.
Counselor Irwin, then Counselor Canellison.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to clear up what I think is some confusion here. We already truck leaves to try recycling through the transfer station. So we're not talking about additional trucking. We're just saying the leaves that we pick up instead of the transfer station, there might be a few more, but we're just going to truck them. So it's not a new expense. Okay, thank you.
Counselor Canellison.
My question is for Brandon. Brandon, I'm curious, when you get to try recycling, are there any leaves left in the truck? Because typically they go away, don't they?
Through your worship to the counselor, we just cleaned out the transfer station a couple weeks ago from the material that was there. We had no issues with anything blowing out that I know of. But yeah, I can't see it because we don't overfill them. So that doesn't happen.
Any other questions on this? Counselor Keough.
I hate to drag it on, but this will not also be Thanksgiving ornamentals and pumpkins from Halloween and that kind of thing. Like,
Right.
it's kind of hard to suck that up. It's not including that.
Yeah, through your worship to council, no, it's
Just
not.
leaves.
It's just yard and leaf waste. That's correct.
If people do that, I would suggest that we go past their property and go to the next one.
Very good.
I think honestly. Okay, so we have a recommendation in front of you. If there's no more questions to try this for a trial, is this being moved by Counselor Irwin? Is there a seconder? Counselor Daigle? Seconded? All in favor? Opposed? Your favorite, one opposed? One opposed. Did you, sorry, Councilor, did you vote for or against? For? Okay, sorry. All right, that is carried. Our next one is tidy yard bylaw, and that is yours, Ashley.
Thank you, and through you, your worship, I present this report regarding the tidy yard bylaw modernization project that corporate services staff undertook. This report reflects a comprehensive review of the municipality's existing tidy yard bylaw, which was originally adopted in 2020. While the current bylaw has provided a general framework for regulating property maintenance, its application over time has identified several operational and enforcement limitations. Through administration of the existing bylaw, staff has experienced challenges related to lengthy compliance timelines, limited ability to address repeat offenders, and a lack of flexibility in responding to time-sensitive or higher-risk situations. In particular, current 21-day compliance period has proven impractical, often resulting in prolonged non-compliance and increased community frustration. In response, staff completed a review, including consultation with legal services, to develop a more modern, flexible, and enforceable framework aligned with current legislative authority and municipal practices. As part of this process, certain provisions were revisited with updated legal analysis and additional operational context provided from staff, resulting in an approach that is both practical to administer and considered defensible within the municipality's authority. The proposed bylaw maintains the original intent of protecting public health and safety while introducing key improvements, including reduced compliance timelines to minimum of 72 hours, the ability to require immediate remediation in cases involving health and safety or fire risks, and a strengthened provision to address repeat offenders and improve cost recovery. Overall, the updated bylaw provides a more responsive and practical framework that better reflects current municipal conditions and supports effective enforcement of our community standards. There are no direct budget impacts associated with the proposed changes, and enforcement will continue within the existing resources, although I would like to draw attention to the growing operational demand on the bylaw enforcement department as council revisits some of the outdated municipal bylaws. In closing, the proposed tidy yard bylaw before you represents a necessary modernization, and the recommendation is that council receives the report tidy yard bylaw modernization for information, and that council endorse the repeal of bylaw 28 of 2020, being the existing tidy yard bylaw, and council adopt the proposed updated tidy yard bylaw attached Appendix A to improve clarity, strengthen enforcement provisions, and better address current operational requirements. And finally, that staff be authorized to proceed with the necessary steps to obtain approval of the set fines therein from the Ministry of the Attorney General. Thank you, and I would be pleased to respond to any questions.
Thank you, Ashley. Questions on this from council? Councilor Nerda and then Councilor Daigle.
Just a comment. Thank you, Ashley, for bringing this report. I was quite pleased to read this report, and I'm looking forward to seeing many tidy yards this summer.
Councilor Daigle.
Just a question on enforcement. Is it the bylaw officer sees the property or do they have to have a complaint?
Thank you, and through you, your worship. Council has directed the bylaw enforcement team to use a proactive approach. However, there is provisions within this draft bylaw to support a complaint-driven process. So at this current time, council has directed staff to be proactive where enforcement capacity exists.
Okay. Councilor Nerda.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ashley, does this mean that our bylaw officer will be out in the field more versus in the office?
Thank you, and through you, your worship. Our bylaw enforcement officer, as council may recall, has a dual role. So he is bylaw enforcement as well as corporate services support. So when the slow season is here during winter and there's not as much tidy yard or property standards violations, he does support the corporate services staff internally with things such as bylaw revisions or any other support that's necessary for corporate services. However, I would anticipate that our officer would be in the field more just based off of the predicted trends of the warmer weather and the grass season, as well as any decisions made from council tonight.
Thank you, Ashley. Myself and I know residents will be pleased to see our bylaw enforcement's presence.
Thank you. Counselor Canellison.
Just further to Councilor Nerda's comment there, Ashley, does our bylaw officer leave the urban areas and go out to the rural communities as well to inspect properties and to view them?
Thank you, and through your worship to the counselor, our bylaw enforcement approach is to do a priority-based approach. So we do react to complaints that are received through the bylaw inbox, as well as a proactive approach. We do go out to rural portions of the municipality. However, I would say that primarily most of the concerns that are raised to our attention exist within the urban settlement areas.
Any other questions on this bylaw? Looking for a mover on this. Moved by Councilor Nerda. Seconded by Deputy Mayor Hodgins. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And next one is yours as well, Ashley, and that is the parking bylaw review.
Thank you, and through you, your worship, and to the members of council. I'm also pleased to present the report regarding the municipal parking bylaw review and modernization project. This report is a result of council's direction in December of 2025 to undertake a comprehensive review of the municipality's existing parking bylaw. The intent of this review was to assess current parking conditions across the municipality and identify opportunities to improve clarity, consistency, and overall effectiveness of the bylaw. To support this work, staff conducted a municipal-wide review that included site visits across urban areas, hamlets, school zones, and vulnerable sector locations. This was complemented by engagement with local businesses, school administrators, and other stakeholders, as well as a review of comparable municipal practices in consultation with county legal services. Throughout this process, several common themes emerged. These included inconsistent or insufficient signage impacting enforceability, limited parking turnover within the downtown cores, operational challenges associated with overnight parking, safety and congestion concerns within the school zones, and the need to maintain clear access to proximity for vulnerable sector facilities. Collectively, these findings highlighted the need for a more modern, consistent, and enforceable regulatory framework. As part of the proposed update, the report includes the introduction of the 2-hour parking within the downtown cores of Park Hill and Elsie Craig. I would note for council that this component reflects previous direction provided by council and has been incorporated into the proposed bylaw framework accordingly. Staff focus through this review has been to ensure that all proposed measures, including this component, are supported by clear regulations, appropriate signage, and enforceable structure. In addition to the time-limited parking provisions, the proposed bylaw includes standardized overnight parking restrictions between 2 a.m. and 7 a.m. in identified areas and the installation and replacement of signage to support clarity and compliance updates to general regulations, defining that will reduce ambiguity and enhance enforcement in those areas, allowing us to be consistent in our application. These updates are intended to address issues identified throughout the review in a practical and balanced manner. The recommendation before council is informed by both council direction and feedback received through stakeholder engagement, including input from businesses and communities and local schools. If approved, implementation would proceed through a phased approach, beginning a public education and awareness period. And during this time, staff would focus on communication and voluntary compliance, full enforcement to follow pending provincial approval, and updated set fine schedule. The implementation of the proposed changes would require the installation of approximately 32 new signs. And while staff will make efforts to accommodate these costs within existing budget, is anticipate that a variance may occur and would be reported through the standard financial reporting process that would be brought back to council. I would also like to note that it's important that staff consider any signage improvements on county roads would need to follow existing regulations in consultation with the County of Middlesex, as well as our own infrastructure and operations team and public works. So in closing, the proposed bylaw represents a comprehensive update intended to improve safety and support economic activity, provide a clear and enforceable framework for parking management across the municipality. The recommendation before council tonight is that council receive the report Municipal Parking Bylaw Review and Modernization, and that council approves the associated proposed bylaw 40 of 2026 in principle and considers for adoption during the reading of the bylaws. Finally, that council directs staff to submit the set fine schedule to the province and proceed with implementation upon approval. Thank you, and I'd be pleased to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ashley. Questions? Councillor Irwin.
Thank you, your worship. I do appreciate the merchants and some residents in Park Hill who are looking for a 2-hour limit on the Main Street parking, but we've heard no similar issues in Elsa Craig. And I can't see the need to do that at this time in our community. There are several communities where one part of the community may have a parking restriction and another part of another commercial area may not. So just because we were looking for uniformity doesn't mean that that's what happens in other municipalities. So I cannot support that section of this bylaw. I don't think we need a 2-hour limit in Elsa Craig. I've heard from the council in Park Hill that she's heard several requests from merchants and others for that. I respect that, but that portion I can't support. So either we vote on that separately, or I can't support the bylaw.
Okay, thank you. Other questions, comments? Councillor Canallison?
Yeah, I do have one, and it's actually an addition, and we brought this up a few years ago, actually, and that's no parking at the end of Elliott Road at the intersection of Boot Hill, where people park on the side of the road, then walk into Joni's Woods. But there's the farmer, the landowner there has very large equipment that's very difficult to maneuver between two parked cars on either side of the road. And at one time he did, actually one of his workers did hit a car, it cost him a significant amount of money. Can we put in some no parking at least along one side of the road down there? Is that possible?
Thank you, and through you to the counselor, we could certainly evaluate the need for that. I know that there is existing signage there, but none relating to no parking. So if council wishes, we could amend the bylaw to reflect that. I would also like to say to council as a whole, the 2-hour parking is based out of council direction. So there has already been approved council direction to staff to facilitate this change. If council does not wish to further that direction, you would have to open that back up to reconsider. Thanks.
Other questions on it? I do have one. We're all subject to being fined because we've all been parking there for more than 2 hours. Just so you know, you can pay on your way out. But that's I'm being sarcastic about it, but it's true. Are we overdoing it for a problem, specific problems that we have? And can we not deal with those problems in a different way without having this bylaw? The 2-hour one, I didn't vote for it the first time, but I think it carries a lot of problems with it. For businesses, there are times when, you know, that you don't want that. I know we have a problem in some spots, but can't we get those problems, deal with the specific problems, which I understand Councillor Nerda has talked about. Can't we deal with them in a different way without having this bylaw? And that's just, I'm throwing that out to whoever wants to. I can say it a little bit different. I would like to see us deal with it a little bit differently than 2-hour parking across the board by finding a way to deal with these problems that we have more efficiently. And I know that that's the basis to it. And I get that there's a problem in a couple of areas. I'll leave it at that.
Perhaps I'll just add, your worship, and the clerk can correct me here. Obviously, I would reiterate that what's been brought forward was a direct request to council. So I'll just remind folks of that. But secondary to that, and I know the clerk has mentioned this before as well, the bylaw does not have anything in place currently to enforce the issue that we have. So if there's a desire to fix those specific issues, some form of update would be required to the bylaw, regardless of if it's 2-hour municipality wide or what that might look like. And the clerk can correct me on that.
Thank you.
I could just add in before you answer, if I can, we have no overnight parking, correct? Like, we're supposed to have no overnight parking. But we haven't enforced any of that. I don't know how we're going to enforce 2-hour parking. So, and this is not an attack on staff. I understand that you were directed to do this. It's just my concern with what we're bringing forward. So go ahead.
Thank you, and through you. I have no correction to provide to Sam's comments. I would note furthering that we have no enforcement mechanism for those abusers currently of the restricted time parking on Park Hill Main Street. I would echo Councillor Irwin's comments throughout our review. We did evaluate if there was a need for 2-hour parking in each urban center. Elsie Craig did not present the same significant need as Park Hill did. Park Hill, there is a higher volume of traffic, it seems, during the day where we don't have an enforcement mechanism. So the current bylaw reads 2-hour parking on both of those proposed in the draft. Council is welcome to consider 2-hour on one or none. Currently, as it sits, 2 hours directed by council.
Go ahead, Sam.
I guess I would just add, your worship, and again, it's stuff that the clerks mentioned before, but enforcing a 2-hour parking restriction is a lot easier than enforcing overnight restriction, because obviously you can do that within the purview of your own 8:30 to 4:30 operating hours, or slightly adjusted based on that. So secondary to making any 2-hour changes, it's certainly far easier to enforce something like that as opposed to an overnight parking issue.
Councillor Daigle.
The 2-hour limit is, I've heard you say Main Street, meaning, but what, King Street?
Thank you, and through you to the councillor. The only new proposed 2-hour is the urban downtown streets, so Main Street, Park Hill, Main Street, Elsie Craig. 2-hour parking does exist in a few other places within the municipality, and Park Hill, King Street is one of them. Yes.
There's no,
King Street here, councillor, has 2-hour parking signs on it.
right, but there's no commercial businesses left there, right? It's
Correct.
not, all right.
But I mean, it is 2-hour parking, but there's no enforcement going on it. So I'm just, what are we adding to? I'm just asking council, because it was direction from council to go here, and I do agree we need some solution here because of some problems that we have. Councillor.
Is it the entire length of the Main Street Park Hill, or is it just where the businesses are? Like, where exactly is the problem? Because I'm not aware of it.
Thank you, and through you, your worship, to the councillor. The highest areas of traffic are between King Street, and then I would say, what is the last street there? Bethany? Yes. No, Bethany? The one just past Foodland. It is escaping me at the moment.
Downtown. The
Yes.
downtown area, the
So-
business area. Park.
Thank you. So that is where I would say the highest volume of parking is. We don't see as much parking stay outside of those. And so within the scope of the draft, it does highlight those areas as evaluated.
Okay, we've beat this up, I think, probably enough. We do have a recommendation in front of you. What is council's wish? Yep,
I would like to move the recommendation as is.
Move the recommendation as is by Councillor Nerda. Is there a seconder? I'm seeing no seconder on that motion. No. So what's council's wish? Councillor Daigle.
I'd like to see it deferred to, so we can look into some other solution to what the actual problem is, other than just throwing a 2-hour limit.
Is what direction is given to council or to staff in that way? Like, there's got to be some direction given, I think, in that motion, correct?
There must be other bylaws out there that deal with the similar project. Maybe do a survey to see if anybody has this kind of an issue and how they're dealing with it. So we're not just saying this area is 2 hours, period. And yeah, see if we can come up with a creative answer rather than a limit that we imposed ourselves.
Okay. Are you good with that direction? You got it? Yes. Is there a seconder for that? You're seconding it? Seconded by Councillor Canellison. More discussion on it? In favor of that? Opposed? One opposed. Okay, that is carried. All right, that is our last report. So committee reports, Lake Huron Primary,
Nothing at this time.
ABCA.
Yeah, we had an in-depth review of the changes coming to the Conservation Authority. There will be a transition board established, which in most parts will be the chair of the board and the manager of that particular CA. There's going to be a regional upper tier committee as well. So the county of Middlesex will have to appoint an elected councillor to that committee as well, okay, at some point. The transition date is looking to be the end of February or beginning of March of 2027, okay? So that's that. The other there's a lot of discussion around the assets that the Conservation Authority has. While they may retain their land, there's some difference of opinion in terms of the financial assets that the Conservation Authority has. There's one opinion that they will retain it, but as we all know, when the municipalities all amalgamated, that all went into one pot. And I can foresee that coming again, because not all conservation authorities have the financial assets that the Sylva Bayfield has. So it's a process in work. By the way, I don't know if you're all aware, but it did change as well from 7 conservation areas to 9. Okay, so that Thunder Bay is no longer in our group. And then down in Essex, there's an East and West Essex. And then the Toronto Conservation Authority was also enlarged to incorporate an adjacent municipality. And there's more, but that's all I can recall.
I would just make comment to your representation by the county. I understand that the county can have one representative on only one of the conservation authorities, and they're allotted a representative on the Erie side. So there would not be any representation on the Huron tract. So in other words, Luke and Badolf and North Middlesex are on the Huron County side or the Huron water side, and we would have no representation.
That was not how they said it the other day, but I understand you.
We want to get clarification because that's what we were told at the county.
Mhm.
And so we want to get that clarified because we still pay, but we don't get to have a representative. So we want to clarify that. Okay. Anything else for the counselor on that? Seeing nothing, Blue Water,
Nothing at this time.
EDAC,
We met last Thursday, your worship. I think it was a very fruitful meeting. We had representation from staff in terms of infrastructure, chief building official and planning. And I think there'll be some projects coming forward out of that our staff's working on that they'll report on in future.
okay. Any comments on that? No? Okay. Local school advisory,
As reported last meeting, your worship, we now have a date for May 1st to present to Thames Valley on the future of schools in our community. Our local school advisory committee is meeting on April 28th to review the material, very similar to what this council's seen in the past. There is discussion, though, that given the changes in terms of how Thames Valley Board will be administered, we should be making a representation to AMO in August. And with that in mind, we do have a motion this evening. I think the clerk has it there.
Thank you, and through you. The recommendation was provided to the local school advisory committee. If I do need to pull that, I will require 1 moment.
and we can request it and then hope that we get granted that.
Right.
Okay.
So hopefully we will be able to move forward. It's an interesting time. They're appointing a new director of education without a school board. And that's been one of the primary functions of boards forever. So who knows what is going to happen. If you've been following what's happening with school boards, they've basically been stripped of their powers. And they have very little control now over the function in future. 8 boards are in suspension, and from what we hear, there won't be candidates at the upcoming municipal election for those 8 boards, including our public board.
Okay. Recreation committee, the rec committee. Thank you. Policy Review Committee? Fire Committee? What was that? May 11th. Aqua Client Advisory Board?
Nothing at this time.
OPP Board?
There's a meeting in June, your worship.
Okay, thank you. Correspondence, first Park Hill Scouts, continued support. McGilver Public School, thank you. And the third one is the free waiver request from Ledgerwood. Councilor Keel.
Yes, Mayor Rupp, I read that there this afternoon, and it seems to be that that was an imposed fee onto that couple when it really, they're not eligible, or it's of no benefit to them. So I'd like to see that fee be reversed.
Through your worship to the councillor, maybe I'll just add some brief context, at least under the purview that I understand. So because the applicant is applying for two separate applications, one being a severance and one being a zoning bylaw, they are getting a 50% fee reduction on both of those based on how our thing reads to date, and that they receive a discount on both of those of 50%. So that's one item to note. And then the second item I would just note, our staff did tell the applicant that we are obviously going through the official plan review process ourselves, and they could go through that process with us if they so chose to. But they did elect to obviously go outside of what our process is and do it themselves, which obviously would then mean they chose to make the application themselves and then be subject to fees. And the last thing I'll just mention is the letter makes reference to presuming that council made an error. I think it's an interesting statement to presume that council made an error when there's no actual basis to support that. So I think it can just be summarized by saying that council obviously made the decision at that time that they made. And it's hard to say that you're presuming that they made an error when they made that decision at that time. So that's the context that I can provide at this time.
Are you still feeling that way, Councillor?
Now that I've got some clarification on it, I heard both sides. So
Okay,
thank you.
okay, thank you. Anything else? Do we need a motion to accept correspondence?
No motion at this time.
Okay, thank you. Other and urgent business. Councillor Irwin.
Just to recognize that this is National Volunteer Week, your worship, and our community could not run and have the quality of life it has without our many volunteer and volunteer groups. I wonder if council would like to entertain a motion thanking all our volunteers as part of National Volunteer Week. If so, I will move that motion.
Okay, seconder? Second, Councillor Canellison, in favor? That is carried. Any other business? I have one, and that is, we talked about Jeremy Hansen. I know it's old news now, but are we moving forward on doing something there, like some designs or something with the sign company does?
So to the mayor, we have reached out to the Village Association because I believe they're the original sign design holder. We're trying to get down the graphic for that signage. And then what we plan to do at Thames Valley is have a plaque template made up to take to the board to see if they're responsive to having that put on the McGilvery School.
Okay.
So we did reach out to Jeremy's parents and we did get their blessing on it through them. Jeremy gave his blessing. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Has there been any follow-up on the location where he grew up?
I don't believe there's been any more follow-up on it at this time. Has there?
Thank you, through you to the councillor. As I've stated before, bylaw enforcement files updates are subject to privacy concerns. However, I would reiterate that the file is progressing and both building and bylaw enforcement are involved.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other business? Seeing none, communications, including county council. I believe you've already talked about the election candidate session. Reading of the bylaws.
Thank you, and through your worship. Tonight, we have first and second readings of bylaw 35, 39, 42, 43, 45, 46, and 47.
First and second. Counselor Keo, Counselor Daigle, all in favor? Carried. And third and final, Counselor Nerda, Deputy Mayor Hodgins, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just somebody on TV is wanting to adjourn. You've been at home all night. Counselor Nerda and Counselor Keo, all in favor? To carry. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. It was a big agenda.